Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Lee. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money.
Welcome to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. I'm Doretta,
I'm Lee.
and this week we're talking about money with your kids. It can be a tough topic. I think many of us wish we'd learned a lot more about money when we were growing up. One of the most frequent comments I used to get was, "Why don't they teach this stuff in school?" And there's actually some good news on that front. Financial literacy is now mandated in every province and territory, though its implementation has a way to go. You've heard Lee and me talk a lot about how our beliefs about money were shaped by our childhood experiences, about how we absorb beliefs and attitudes about money from our parents, whether they were consciously trying to teach us or not, and about how a lot of what we came to believe uncritically was shaped by family and culture and generations of increasingly sophisticated marketers.
Amen. Now, there are a lot of valid reasons why people are nervous about talking to their kids about money. It can be a powerful mix of emotional, cultural, and practical reasons, all whipped up with our own money hangups. We may have inherited a culture of silence around money. It's just not something you talk about. And then there are our own anxieties, which can make us feel really vulnerable.
Not to mention a little bit fraudulent. I mean, a lot of us are still struggling with our own confidence in financial matters, not to mention our own mistakes. So we might feel we don't actually know enough to teach our kids about money, or that we might say the wrong thing and pass on unhealthy attitudes, for example.
Remember, silence is also a response. I think another reason that might hold us back from these conversations is a concern about what's age appropriate. We don't want to make kids more anxious, especially if there are money concerns in the family. We might be concerned that talking about money might make our kids feel, more insecure. And if there are money tensions between spouses, partners, that can also add a kind of pressure.
Of course, there's the fear that kids might ask questions that maybe we're just not ready to answer, like, how much money do you make? Or why can't we afford that? Or are we poor? I know my grandkids have asked that one. And in the next breath, are we rich? The curiosity of kids.
I mean, kids are special. I've I've also heard parents express fears that talking about money might make kids overly money conscious, too materialistic, that sort of thing. How do we strike a balance between making our kids aware and overemphasizing money? And I mean, I'll share with that
Yeah.
recently. My daughter's turning 5 soon. And the other night I was putting her to bed and she asked me about what's important in life. And she answered and said, "Money is important, right?" And of course, in our line of business, we talk a lot about money because I'm always of the believer that the cobbler's family should have shoes. But for me, it's also a challenge. Am I overdoing it in a sense where now she's going to think, okay, well, money is super important. And so I had to stop and think for a moment and really kind of back that truck up and kind of put it into context. Now, whether or not that works, maybe in 10 years we'll do a recap and then I'll let you know how it all worked out.
I think the thing here is that we all deep down know that we should be teaching our kids about money. And a lot of us are just not sure how to do it. And because there are a gazillion reasons why these conversations are hard, we can end up avoiding them altogether. And also, there just aren't a lot of guidelines on when and how to do it well. Now, you and I have developed programming for parents to take on this challenge. We've done some research with parents to understand what they need to feel comfortable. So, why don't we talk about that for a while and give folks some tips and tricks to help parents have these conversations?
And I think it's important to also note that these are kind of some things to consider, some guardrails, because every conversation is unique to the family, to the child, And so we're going to try to kind of break it down for you. And as I've shared, right, even me, I'm always talking, thinking, reading about money, but how I approach my child is always evolving. And so you shouldn't feel scared to try new things. Okay. Let's start with the question we get asked most. When should we start? And the answer to that is easy. Now.
Unless they're babes in arms.
Well, yeah, but you can probably whisper gently into their ears.
Lee,
Yeah, but come on. I mean, the point is, it doesn't matter how old your kids are. It is never too soon or too late to start talking about money, no matter how old your kid is. And the best time is to start now. What you want to look for are cues, learning opportunities, and the best learning opportunities are when your child starts wanting things. This is when you start explaining our favorite concept. Doretta, hit me.
needs versus wants.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes, needs and wants. And they start wanting really young. Now, again, I've started sharing my own experiences with my daughter, who will tell you that she's 4 3/4, even though she has no idea what 3/4 actually means. What she knows is that she's more than 4, but less than 5.
That is actually plenty old enough to start understanding the difference between needs and wants, which is the foundation of a successful relationship with money. Understanding the difference can guide your priorities and your spending, and that saves you in the long run.
It takes time to teach this lesson, which is why we suggest you start as soon as your child starts wanting. First of all, to make things clear, this is not about austerity, which is where you don't let your child have anything. That is not the lesson. The lesson is that they know what a need is and what a want is, and that means making choices. Okay, so I'll share two very personal stories. Um, the first was when my daughter and I were at the science center. She was probably 3-ish. We were at the end of our visit, and of course, we had to exit through the gift shop like every place you visit. And she wanted a pencil. It was, I don't know, $2. I asked her why she wanted it, and it was because it had hearts and rainbows on it, of course. Duh. I mean, how dumb of me as mummy. I spent the next 20 minutes, and literally 20 minutes, I looked at my watch to explain needs and wants to her. She didn't need a pencil. She had tons of pencils at home, which she, of course, didn't use because she wasn't even writing yet. And buying this heart and rainbow pencil would meet her immediate want, but she didn't need it. And I told her when she got it home, she would just throw it in with all the other pencils that she didn't use. The interesting part is I started noticing that as I was talking to her, all the sales folks, and they were definitely students, edged in closer to listen to my very long-winded explanation. In the end, I don't know if she really understood or she just gave up, but she said, "Okay, mama," and we left
Without the pencil?
without the pencil. Now, one important thing here is that I actually had the time at that moment to explain the whole needs versus wants thing in an immediate, relevant way, what we call a teachable moment. One kid, not rushed, no pressure. And I totally get that for many parents, spending that $2 would have been a much easier and quicker process.
Yeah, I can tell you another $2 story about a wee girl I know with a new blue stuffy. When she was asked about it, she said, and I quote, "Mama said no. I cried. Mama said yes." But the context of that was also $2. And Mama had a migraine and was running last minute errands before rushing to pick up her other two kids from a birthday party.
And that's real life. So, not the moment to have a teachable moment. And the point is that when truly teachable moments arise, seize them if you can. When the kid is actively engaged and you have the time to explain on their terms, these little interactions become the base of important lessons. And it's all about consistency. Now, my daughter has never once complained when I told her no, she couldn't have an item. And for other parents, it could be at the grocery store or when your child shares a story about something a classmate brought to school and they wanted it. Anytime you are exchanging money, digital or otherwise, or you have your child with you, talk to your child about it. At the bank, what are you doing? Paying bills, show them. They share a story about wanting or asking for something. These are all primed moments for you to pounce.
You seriously want me to believe that your little angel has never complained when you said no?
Okay, you know what? I take that one part back. It's not entirely true. She will absolutely express her disappointment in a multitude of ways, whine a bit, and maybe mention it a week later just to let me know she hasn't forgotten. But she ultimately moves on. And often when I offer to buy her something, she will say, "Oh, I already have that at home." And then I'm the one who has to convince myself to put stuff back on the shelf when she drops that on me. And I remind myself that I need to reinforce good habits and not satiate my own need for buying.
Our own need for buying. That is an incredibly important observation. I remember once taking my son, who was maybe about 5 at the time, to Costco. Now, my son was one of those kids who was just born frugal. Nothing I did. He just came out that way. And there we were at Costco, and I'd put things in the cart, treats. I'd think a DVD, some random toy for him, and he'd take them out again. It was hilarious. But seriously, it's really hard for parents. We all want to give our kids the world, and so many kids now just have more and more and more stuff. And it's perfectly understandable that when they have a lot, they expect a lot. They think that's normal. And we don't want them to ever feel like they lack anything compared to their peers. We want them to be happy. Okay, so Lee, what was your second story?
My second story? Oh, right. Um, this is kind of the opposite now. So recently we did a big family trip to my OG hometown in China. Now, China brings consumerism to a whole new level. I mean, it's where they make it all. So comparatively, everything there is just so cheap. And I admit it, I pretty much let my daughter get anything she wanted, sometimes in triplicate. I can still feel my husband's glare of disapproval, but he's a certifiable minimalist, so that's a story for another day. My point is that I was also using the have what you want experience in China as a lesson. I told her that these are all nice things to have, but by no means are they a given. They are privileges and they can also be taken away. And there were rules around it. When we were in a super touristy area, I told her, "This is a very expensive area. If you find something, we're gonna have to look for something similar, in a non-tourist designated space." And when we were on an outing, I would let her buy one souvenir. She could pick the item herself, but only one. The point is to show her relative value and trade-offs, that we can't own everything all at once, and nor should we. And I also wanted to highlight kind of both ends of the spectrum, that it wasn't flood or drought. And here's the thing, conversations about money doesn't always have to come from not spending.
It's not about delivering specific information, specific content, or about austerity and finding reasons to always be saying no. It's about identifying those teachable moments. And you can't schedule them like, "So today after dinner, we will have a teachable
I
moment."
wish we
I think,
could. That would be great.
oh gosh, that was the myth when I was a young working mom of quality time, as if you could seriously schedule quality time with your toddler. I think it's really great you're starting to have these money conversations with little Miss 4 3/4. It's not so much that you're starting to teach her money skills, although a little bit of that is starting to happen, but it's that you're laying the foundations for developing those skills.
Exactly. What I'm really trying to do is start to normalize money conversations so that she's comfortable to ask us questions and we are comfortable to seize that learning moments as they arise, because we've started the practice of talking about money in an open and honest way. Okay, that's some guidance about young children. But what if your kids are older and you haven't made a point of these kinds of conversations? What if your kids are tweens or teens? Is it already too late?
Absolutely not. The best time to start is now, no matter how old your kids are. And the principles remain exactly the same.
What do you mean?
Well, it's still about looking for the teachable moments. It's still critical to start with wants versus needs and to be open in discussing money so that they feel safe asking questions. Answer their questions as they arise. I mean, here's the thing, all kids, regardless of their age, learn the most when they're fully engaged in the moment. That's when the lesson is relevant because it matters to them. And there's so many activities that can provide the opportunities for money conversations. Grocery shopping, planning a birthday party, online and streaming subscriptions, comparing prices in stores and online. All these things offer natural openings to assess options and explore choices and calculate the trade offs. And I would add, though, that the whole digitization of money adds a really significant layer of complication.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to do a future deep dive on digital money. Even with little ones, it's no longer as simple as save, spend, share jars, and the physical act of turning over their cash in exchange for something.
I agree. There's another thing I'd add, and it matters more and more and more as your kids get older. And that is that you really have to figure out what works for each individual child because they're all different. Money lessons need to be concrete and relevant to what they're interested in. And that's true whether you're dealing with cash, credit, gift cards, or online purchases. What engages them varies significantly from kid to kid.
Here's some examples, Strata.
Okay, well, I think back to my kids as teenagers. They were so different. My daughter learned discipline in the sense that she absolutely stick to her budget, allowance, whatever. She didn't overspend, but she enjoyed spending it. Same with money from her part-time job. But my son, I swear, as I said, born frugal, hardwired to save. He was the kid who never spent his allowance. He'd even make his own lunch and save his lunch money. So with my daughter, there were a lot of discussions about value for money. She understood wants and needs. She got the save, spend, share distinctions. So by the time she started high school, it was about setting priorities with her wants. We did it by giving her a clothing allowance, starting with a fixed amount to buy something special, new pants or whatever it was that girls wanted in the Spice Girl era. And the amount and responsibility for it, the timing, the frequency grew every year. So that by the end of high school, she got a quarterly allowance. And except for birthday and Christmas presents, she was completely responsible for her entire clothing budget. And that's when she learned about vintage clothing shops. So when she needed a new winter coat, there was no way she was going to spend her entire quarter's clothing allowance on it. I remember her delight in finding a Hudson's Bay coat at the Kensington Market for I think it was $35. She wore that coat all through university. It became her signature thing. I think she still has it. But when her younger brother started high school, she said to me, "Don't give him a clothing allowance. He'll just bank it all and wear his clothes until they fall apart and he'll embarrass me."
Considering that I've met both of your children, now I'm going to share these stories with them the next time I see him. So, especially your son. Speaking of that, what did he want to learn about then?
I don't really remember investing, I think, in a general sort of way. He was very interested in buying real estate. But he started doing his own research at a pretty young age. And, I was talking to him the other day about this. Like, what had he learned at home about money? And he said that he didn't really remember any obvious lessons. But he concluded that he must have learned a lot because he seemed to know stuff other kids his age didn't know, especially when he got to university.
So basically, it was kind of organic. He got his questions answered, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think that's a great example of how taking the taboo and shame away from that topic allows our children to learn. In this case, even without them knowing they learned it. Money conversations are like anything. Parents want to make sure kids come to them for help. We definitely will talk to them about sex and religion. I want us to tack money up there too, even if we're not confident in it. It could also be our learning moment.
Agreed. Don't let what held you back affect your children. Like many things, some lessons are generational. So, what do you want to do differently for your child?
And remember, it isn't all or nothing. The basics are the basics. Start easy and in an age appropriate way. With my daughter, for example, we give away a lot of the things she's done with, but I also sell some of them online. Once she got upset because I sold a small trampoline that she hadn't jumped on for like 6 months and maybe longer. It was just being used as an additional shelf in her room, not to mention that she was probably getting too heavy for it. Anyway, I showed her that when I sold something of hers, the money went into her account spreadsheet. Yes, I know we've said previously no spreadsheets, but I have a few. Sorry, my bad. But most of that money goes into her education fund. And immediately she was like, oh, okay. I could actually see the shift happening in her mind, that the value of her trampoline didn't go away. It was just converted. Now she'll ask to see that spreadsheet every now and then just to keep tabs on her account.
Adorable. And a little bit scary. I mean, before you know it, she's going to want to know what you do with her money.
That will be the day of celebration. She'll probably be making me explain my investment strategies. Hooray.
Well, she's not 5 yet, so I think you've got time, just not as much as you think you do. But think about it. The important lesson here is not about numbers. The important lesson is to meet the kids where they're at and have the conversation. That's it. Just take the time to hear their questions or explain concepts when you're in the moment with them. And the earlier you start, the better. Life's busy. We all know that. But when you're a parent, you have to grab those opportunities as they whiz by. And I'll tell you, the older your kids get, the questions get harder and the stakes get higher. So, like Lee with her little one and the pencil and the trampoline and the spreadsheet, learn to recognize the moment, start the conversation, answer the question, explain your reason.
Yeah, one of the questions we get a lot is if parents should tell their kids how much they earn. The kids may even ask, but as for telling your kids what you earn, it should be part of a lesson. I think my feelings are pretty neutral. I don't think it's inherently a good or bad idea. Like I said in the beginning, each family is different, each child is different. And for sure, you can certainly build some really important lessons around it. Maybe if you're talking about budgeting, you kind of need to know what your cash inflow is versus your outflows. And that way you can, in real time, use real numbers. But you can also teach these lessons without that specific personal information. It's up to you. If you want to provide these numbers, go for it. But know that they don't need to know every financial detail to learn that money is earned, is in limited supply, and has to be carefully managed. I do think the most important thing is to be open to their questions and to be honest.
Agree. And I would suggest that if you do decide to tell them, set really clear parameters around it of exactly what you're comfortable with. Like, this is a family topic, so I don't want you to repeat this to your friends, etc. Alternatively, if they ask, you could let them know why you have reservations about sharing that information, or you could ask them what prompted the question, because it might not even have anything to do with the actual.
In a nutshell, those are the lessons. Seize the moment, provide the reasons, answer the questions. And if you don't know, be open about it. Financial literacy is a journey, it's not a single destination. And if you don't know, then take the time to look up the answer. It's a wonderful learning opportunity for your child and for yourself. We are never too old to learn new things.
I love that. It has a very words of wisdom feel to it.
Yeah, well, easy to say, but it can be really hard in practice. Life is real. Sometimes we don't have the time or even the knowledge or inclination. But as parents, we can't be expected to know everything. But as long as we start the money conversations, build the safe space for our kids to explore, you'll get there. You may have to try a few different approaches with your kids, but sooner or later you'll find the right levers and then it clicks. And it's like working a muscle. The first conversation tends to be the hardest, and then it gets easier. And once it clicks, you've got the foundation you need to set your kids on the road to financial confidence. You got this.
And on that note, 3 key learnings from today.
The first one is it's never too early or too late to start talking to your kids about money. Just look for those learning opportunities where they're interested and engaged. And remember, you're always modeling financial behavior for them, whether you're conscious of it or not. Let them see you budgeting, assessing relative value, making choices, aligning those choices with the needs of the family, the values that are meaningful to you, and the available funds. Take the opportunity to explain.
Second, understanding the difference between wants and needs is the foundational skill, no matter how old they are. Once they understand the difference, they have the foundation to begin making choices. With little ones, just start when they start wanting things. With older kids, the conversations will get a lot deeper. One thing we've learned, though, from years of developing financial literacy for kids is that they're pretty much all really interested in money.
Isn't that the truth? And finally, don't be afraid. Even if it starts out awkward, even if you don't have all the answers, even if you make a mistake, the most important thing you're doing is letting your kids know that talking about money is okay. Asking questions is okay. And let them know their questions about money are definitely on the table for discussion. Because once we take away the taboo around something, kids feel like they can ask questions and learn and grow. And I guess I would add one more thing that matters a lot as your kids get older, and that is customize. You really have to figure out what works for your own kid because they're all different. Money lessons need to be concrete and relevant to what they are interested in.
I like that. So that's it for today.
Good talk. You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.